So actually, neurons can tolerate quite a lot of ischemia, it turns out. After experiments with rats stopping the blood flow to the cerebral cortex, after 6 hours, only 15% of the neurons were necrotic. And similarly, autopsies of elderly humans, autopsies done an average of 2.6 hours post-mortem. The cells, the neurons had 70 to 90% viability after 2 weeks in vitro. So the neurons are actually pretty darn durable compared to the blood vessels. Next slide. We do want to begin, I'm going to talk about the whole sequence of cryonics, or cryonics practice or procedures. In a good case, you'll begin immediately after pronouncement of death. You only have a 6-minute limit if you can start cooling right away and circulation right away. Give medicines, heparin against clotting, usually restore the circulation and cool in an ice bath. Replace blood with vitrification solution and cool quickly to just above -123, which is where the solidification occurs of the vitrification mixture. Then cool slowly over several days to let the nitrogen temperature and restore the nitrogen. And the last step, of course, hopefully there'll be reanimation and rejuvenation in the future. Next slide. So there's a number of cryonics organizations. The two big ones that have been mentioned is Alcor in Arizona and the Cryonics Institute in Michigan. And currently, as a current date, both these organizations have 100 patients, and the other organizations have a fewer number of patients. There's also an organization, Suspend Animation in Florida, which does not store patients. They just do the standby and stabilization part. And they actually, Suspend Animation has actually been doing most of the, certainly a major part of the standby and stabilization for Alcor, and they have a contract with many Cryonics Institute members, but they only operate in the United States. Next slide. So Alcor will either preserve your whole body or your head. They call it preserving the head neuro, and they charge different prices for whether they do your head or your whole body. The Cryonics Institute has a policy of only preserving whole bodies. We don't give you a neuro option. On the other hand, we do have different ways of doing perfusion. We can perfuse only the head, or we can perfuse the head and the body independently. And we use a different perfusion solution. We use VM1 for the head and glycerol for the body when we do them both. Now, we charge the same price whether you want one or the other. People can say, I just want the head or do both. We currently recommend that they only do the head. But anyway, many people want their body perfused. Even though it's not possible to eliminate ice formation in the body. We can vitrify the brain, but we can't vitrify the body. We can just cut down the ice formation a bit. When Alcor perfuses the whole body, both the head and the body are perfused together. Next slide. There's some problems with trying to vitrify with perfusing the whole body. It sounds great, but we would certainly want to perfuse the whole body or vitrify the whole body. If we were able to vitrify the whole body, then there would be a possibility of people getting up and walking away after being cryopreserved. But we're a long way from that now, and there are a lot of problems with trying to vitrify the body. At Alcor, if you're trying to perfuse the whole body, it takes longer. You have to vitrify all the organs, or try to saturate all the organs with vitrification solution, even though you're not vitrifying them as best you can. So that means the brain spends a lot longer being exposed to this toxic cryoprotectant. And the vitrification saturation can't be monitored separately from the body and the brain. So you're really sort of guessing at what the saturation of the brain is, and when you're doing the body. At the Cryonics Institute, the neck vessels shrink. If you try to perfuse the body first, the neck vessels shrink, which makes it harder to cannulate and perfuse. And there could even be seepage of glycerol in the brain from the body if you perfuse the body second due to collateral vessels, which could interfere with the vitrification in the brain, although that's a little bit speculative. But anyway, it causes a delay for the brain if you're having to also vitrify the body. So I recommend not perfusing the body. Next slide. This is going back to the sequence events. Again, I'm going to go through the sequence a bit more in the next slide. Medications, propofol, sedative and neuroprotective, epinephrine, we want to raise the blood pressure if we can. Heparin, streptokinase, heparin, most commonly used, very important against clotting. Try to stop acidosis. A lot of these are against ischemia and reperfusion. But cooling and cardiopulmonary support are by far the most important things you can do. Much more important than any of these medications. A lot of people just go haywire trying to get the right medications in and just forget that cooling is so important, so much more important. And a good cardiopulmonary support. Next slide. So I'm saying cardiopulmonary support. We're not doing CPR. We're not trying to resuscitate the patient by restoring the circulation. That's one reason why we give propofol, to keep the patient from regaining consciousness when we restore circulation. We do want circulation, however, because the circulation helps accelerate the cooling. We use mechanical compression, a thumper, to improve the perfusion pressure over what you could do manually. Ice, if you just pack a patient in ice, it's not as good as using ice water, because the water will conduct heat away faster, and if the water is moving, it will conduct the heat away all that much faster. And as I say, having the blood circulating inside the patient helps conduct heat away from the core of the body to the periphery of the body. And if you can actually get a cold perfusion solution into the blood vessels themselves, then you can really get rapid cooling. So next slide. So this is sort of an example of the ice bath we have. It's the ice water and the ice water going into this bath with the patient, and we have this thumper, this device that's going to mechanically apply the cardiopulmonary support. Get the blood moving again. Next slide. Just to clarify a few definitions which I've been using, but maybe could use better clarification. Perfusion is injecting the circulating fluids to the blood vessels. It's distinct from diffusion, where you just have movement of molecules and liquids due to random motion and concentration gradients. Standby is when you have people waiting by the bedside for a terminal patient to have their heart stopped and be pronounced dead. And stabilization is the process of cooling, cardiopulmonary support, and medications that's begun immediately after pronunciation of death, hopefully. Next slide. And another important word is ischemia, which is no blood flow. And if you get no blood flow, then obviously the tissues can't get any oxygen and nutrient. And ischemia not only damages the body tissues by not giving them nutrient and oxygen, but it makes the blood vessels become more leaky. And we distinguish between warm ischemia and cold ischemia. Warm ischemia would be what happened if there was nobody to start cooling immediately. The person's just laying there, their heart's stopped, and they're warm. They're not even being cooled or anything. Cold ischemia, almost all cryonics patients experience this. If they deanimating outside of Michigan or Arizona, they're going to be packed in ice and sitting in ice. Next slide. So then there's reperfusion. Now it's great. What you want to, you want to start the blood flowing again, after the heart stops, if you can. And if the heart has just stopped and you apply CPR or a defibrillator and you get the heart going again, the heart will start getting nutrient and oxygen immediately, and that's great. That's really helpful. But if too much time passes, actually starting the blood circulation can end up damaging the tissues more than if you hadn't started the circulation again. And that's called reperfusion injury. And oxygen plays a large role in this reperfusion injury. Oxygen is really helpful when when you have a living tissue and you're not doing reperfusion. But if time has passed, oxygen can cause an awful lot of free radical damage in the reperfusion injury process. But reperfusion, oxygen isn't the only damaging thing that happens in reperfusion. Cytokines and other factors get involved. Next slide. So, as I mentioned, the reperfusion injury can also damage the blood vessels, or anyway, we can damage the blood vessels and increase their leakiness, so we end up with edema. So edema means that the tissues are swelling up with fluid. And so you try to do a perfusion, and you're perfusing all this fluid into the patient, and and nothing's coming out. You're just putting fluid in, nothing's coming out. Well, what's going to happen? You're going to blow up like the Michelin Man. And that's what happens in a lot of these cryonics patients. That's an exaggeration, but you just get fluid going in, no fluid coming out. And it interferes with perfusion. Perfusion is blocked. Edema is a major problem when you have ischemic cryonics patients. Next slide. So there's a lot of mechanisms of reperfusion injury. This is indicating some of them. But I want to point out edema. If you've got a lot of fluid in the tissue, it's going to constrict the blood vessels. So you can't get any circulation. All this water, edema fluid that you're pouring in is just makes it. We've had to stop perfusion because of edema. It happens too often. So here you are. You're trying to perfuse from the arterial side to the venous side, going through all these capillaries. And when you've got edema or blockage through the other sources of blood vessel damage, what will happen is the blood will take the path of least resistance. So if there's one path or a few paths that are not very much blocked, all the blood will go through there. The other paths are not getting much or very little. So or some of them are getting some flow. So you'll have some areas you're trying to vitrify the patient, put a vitrification solution through. You'll get some areas that are getting full vitrification, good saturation of vitrification solution. Some that are getting no vitrification solution and you're just getting freezing, and some areas that are getting a little bit of vitrification solution or some vitrification solution and reduction in freezing. Next slide. So by doing a blood washout, you can improve matters somewhat. You can get rid of a lot of clotting and blood cell aggregation, and you can. If you're shipping a cryonics patient, you can replace the blood with an organ preservation solution, which will help protect the tissues. And also, you can, if you're able to perfuse with a cold washout solution, you're not only clearing out all the blood to reduce clotting and other factors, you're also able to cool the patient very rapidly. Much more rapidly than with external cooling. Although then again, it takes time to do the surgery to set up a washout. And also, if you don't do it properly, you can end up causing reperfusion injury with your washout. And the washout is not going to prevent the cold edema you have due to the cold ischemia of shipping in ice. Next slide. So there's a company in Oregon run by Ashley and Shauna DeWolf that's doing research for the Cryonics Institute on these problems. And they've discovered actually perfusion solutions that can improve perfusion despite edema and reperfusion injury. And they can get good perfusion of ischemic patients that experience 24 or 48 hours of cold ischemia. Clear out those blood vessels just by using the right solution. Now these are people who are working on weekends, and And they do great work, and it would really benefit cryonics if there was money available for them to do research full time. So that's my pitch for them. Next slide.